Okay, seems like we're live. Welcome to the second live of Finish First Financially. I did the first one yesterday and I gave pretty much a rundown of what I intend to do with this channel, where it's going, and just to give you a brief overview. This is supposed to be consultations that I do with people who call in, and we discuss their personal finance problems. I address their questions. I give them what I would do in that specific situation. I use all of the principles that are documented in my book to answer their question. And then if they feel that that's something that they could use and to get the same results as I did, which helped me to pay off $40,000 in debt and then eventually save more than $50,000, they're welcome to do that. Obviously, none of this is financial or investment advice. It's purely for entertainment purposes. But of course, I would like to get to a point where we have enough viewers where people are calling in. Until then, I've got some things prepared for this live stream that I'm gonna discuss. But yeah, I also gave yesterday a rundown not only of the channel of what I intend to do with it, but also my story of how I became homeless through a series of financial mistakes, and then how I dug myself out of that hole to pay off my debts, and then eventually start accumulating savings. And then I started investing, and all of these things that I've spoken about. Some of the things I spoke about yesterday on the first stream, if I haven't spoken about it, I will in future streams. Yeah, I think people are also curious about investing, but I think for most people, their main issue is that they really need to get out of debt. I think that's one of. Why is the chat disabled for the live stream? That's what I want to know. Oh, there's always issues when you go live. I'll have to check in on that and see why the chat is disabled. Unfortunately, that's what it seems like. So you want to get out of debt, you want to know how to do it. All the information is really out there online. I mean, I'm sure you know it. It's just sometimes you need a helping hand. You need to see that other people are in the same situation as you. And it kind of helps you to see that you're not the only one. And I think that's one of the things that I want to do with these live streams, with these calls, is when people call in, you kind of feel that you can do this because other people are going through it and I'm helping them get through it. And there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And if you really make a change in your financial situation, then you can get where you want to be. And as I mentioned yesterday, being debt free is one of the most liberating feelings. It's an amazing place to be in your life. And it's just, I think, something that most people should strive towards, because we don't have to be in this perpetual cycle of being in debt. We see how debt adds value to our life. So let's say you don't have a car and you want to buy a car because it's going to make life easier for you to get to work. And that's absolutely true. But obviously, the best scenario is for you to buy a car that's secondhand, that you can afford with cash. Unfortunately, that's not the situation for most people. Uh, you know, or if they do have cash to buy a secondhand vehicle, they want to upgrade. They want to now immediately start with like a fancy little thing, to drive around town. And because they don't have the cash, they use borrowed money. They finance it. And now you driving this nice car that you like, you feel cool, and I guess you're kind of making the payments on them. But then you want more value to be added to your life because you saw what vehicle finance did for you. Now you're comfortable. You no longer have to take public transportation. You are now, enjoying it. Life is better. And then you go and take out another loan, whether that could be maybe a personal loan to refurbish your house or a credit card because you want to buy gadgets, and you just stack one debt on top of the other. And that's the unfortunate thing, that when you take out the first debt, it usually leads to more debt. It's hardly ever the case where one person has just taken out a debt and they paid it off and then that was it for the rest of their life. That's not the case for most people who go into debt. They just accumulate more and more debt because uh, they want to live a certain certain standard of living. They want to be on a certain level, even though they can't afford it. That's exactly what happened to me. I had a luxury BMW. I was living in a nice area, and I had to get latest iPhone. I had to get the iPad because that's cool. Didn't even really know why I needed it, but I just needed it. When you're in too much debt and you can't make let me say this first. When you become accustomed to that lifestyle now that you've acquired through debt, it's very difficult to let go of it because people now feel comfortable. Your friends, your family have seen you driving this car. They've seen you with all of these things. They've seen you going on vacations, which you probably put on your credit card. And now to get out of debt, that requires a lifestyle change. Means that you need to lower your expenses. And that usually means getting rid of that fancy car, not buying any more things on your credit card and so forth, downgrading your lifestyle. And that's the thing that most people have a problem with. They don't want to do that. They absolutely don't want to do that because it's an ego thing. They don't want their so-called reputation tarnished, and they don't want to be less comfortable than what they are now. So in that situation, going back to buying a car, one of the probably, if you have to buy a car, then it's wiser, in what I think, it's a better option for you to buy it with cash. Why go into debt as opposed to getting that 20, $30,000 vehicle? Go for one that's 3,000. Start with that. And anybody can put 150, $200 aside every single month, and a year and a half or max 2 years later, there you've got money to buy a reliable second-hand vehicle. And this is probably going to be a Honda or Toyota, which are really good vehicles. They last long, they're reliable as long as you take care of them. But you've bought a vehicle for cash. It's yours. It belongs to you. The bank can never come knocking on your door. And an even more important thing that happens to you when you take that route of buying things with cash as opposed to going into debt, you are now conditioning yourself to buy things to avoid debt and to use only cash for purchases. And that's very important. As I've mentioned, you take out one debt and then several others follow. But whereas if you buy something with cash and you own it and you don't have to pay anything for it every single month, that feels good because now all the income after that purchase is not going out. Yeah, you've paid cash as opposed to taking out vehicle finance. Then every single month there's money going out of your account. So it feels good to have that money in your account, and it kind of programs you to see that the next thing that I want, maybe I should save up. Sure, it's going to take me a couple of years to get there, but you know what? Once I get there and I just make sacrifices for those next couple of years, then I'm going to be, buy this thing that I want with cash, with what I've saved up, with what I've worked for. I didn't borrow someone else's money, and then I own it. that it's mine. Nobody can take it away from me. I don't have to worry about paying this thing off for the next couple of years. I don't have to stay at a job that I dislike just to pay this thing off. And it's just a much better situation to be in. That's what I found when I got into this whole mess of having so much debt, and then I just became homeless because I couldn't even pay my rent. And I made a commitment to myself that I would never take out debt again. So once I started paying one debt, and then I paid off the other and paid everything off, it's just felt amazing. And I said, there is absolutely no ways I will ever go into debt ever again. And I just won't do it. I paid off my last debt about a year and a half ago. And the thought of going into debt or anything similar, it just it's so not on my radar. I'm absolutely not interested in any of that. And because I don't have debt, I've got savings, and I don't need to go into debt. Eventually I was able to save 80% of my salary. So it's just like 20% of my income was spent on bare essentials, just the expenses that I needed to survive. And 80% was just being put into savings, which grew in a high yield savings account, by the way. And then also in other investments. So I think those things are extremely important to consider. Nobody wants to be in debt. So I think we as society, we need to kind of get out of that mindset that it's just normal to be in debt for years or for the rest of our lives. It's actually not normal. It's crazy to be in debt and to pass it on to your family members sometimes, in some cases when you die. That's just, to me, that's nuts. And that's definitely not a situation that I want to be in. So I think a good goal, I think the core focus for most viewers is to get out of debt. And I detailed my entire process of how I did it in my book, From Homeless to Debtless with Savings. And I'm going to, during these calls, when people call in, I'm going to be obviously using that information from the book to address their issues. So you'll obviously get snippets, excerpts from the book as well, so that you could get an idea for what it is. But obviously, to really get the full picture, you can get the book from my website, finishfirstfinancially.com, or on Amazon. But it's the methods that help me to completely turn my life around, which I documented in the book and which I will be sharing throughout the consultation so that people get value. This is not just about me trying to sell something. That I need to offer value first, and people need to receive that value and feel like, well, they want more value. And then that's when other products come into play. But yeah, obviously my intention is to add value to people's lives first for free. That's it. Like this broadcast. I mean, I put money, not only just time, but put money into buying this phone to record this, a computer that can support the software, so a microphone, and all of these other things that go into this, that I've dedicated before I've even made a single cent from this. And I want to do it because I feel that I've got important information to share with people that could be beneficial to them. It was extremely beneficial to me. And just think about how far back I was set when I was homeless, right? You're probably not homeless. You're watching this from the comfort of your own home, or you're at work. And, uh, you know, if I could go literally from the street to pay off my debt and then to save up $50,000, how much could you do? How far could you go if from the comfort of your own home. Just think about that. So you've got a much bigger head start on me than when I started. So I presume you probably even have a job. You've got an income. I barely had any food to eat, and I had to figure this stuff out. I struggled just to get. I was in my car in like autumn going into winter. It was cold. I didn't have any food, so I was just worried about somebody not breaking into my car at night while I'm in it. And you're in your home, it's warm, you've got food, you've got all of these resources that are available to you for free, like this live stream, which I'm sharing my information, my experiences, and hopefully that it's going to help you. So just think about how much sooner you could really turn your financial situation around than what I did, because you've got such a head start on me. So don't feel like your situation is the worst. There's always somebody in a worse situation who has actually managed to accomplish more than you. And that shouldn't serve as, as an opportunity to get jealous, to get demotivated. It should actually be an opportunity to be motivated, to see, other people who are in a much worse spot than me managed to get out of it. And what's so special about what they did? Why can't I do it? And the biggest reason that most people, as I mentioned, one of the things is that they don't want to downgrade their lifestyle because they feel comfortable. They don't want their egos to be bruised. Yeah, they want all these things, and then they want this image of them that they've actually portrayed out to society. They want that to stick, and they don't want that to be tarnished in any way. And they just don't want to make a change. And you have to absolutely make a change if you want change. It's as simple as that. There's nothing I or anybody else can tell you. There's no magic bullet. There's no pill that's not going to change everything. It starts with you. It starts with you sitting down and looking at your cash flow statement, which is what I call a budget, but a budget is a forecast, whereas a cash flow statement is actual figures, which you need to track with receipts, and looking at all of your expenses. What do I actually need? Do I need these subscriptions? Do I need takeouts? Why don't I rather get groceries, which is usually healthy and costs half the price of takeouts? So let me eliminate cigarettes. I don't need that to live. Let me eliminate going out with friends for some time. We can make sacrifices. They can come over, we can watch movies, but we don't have to go out to clubs and buy bottles or always have barbecues and so forth. Let's cut down on these unnecessary expenses. Let's make a sacrifice for a certain period, because after that period, even though it might be grueling and feel long, then we can enjoy the rest of our lives because we are not in debt, because we have savings. Then you can enjoy those outings much more than what you would now. You just, chances are you're probably even putting those expenses on your credit card. So you just add it, you can't even really enjoy it because it's kind of short-term pleasure. You enjoy the moment, but then come at the end of the month, you now have to pay back this credit card. So it's like interest on your fun, basically. That's what it comes out to. You're delaying that payment, but it's just even worse later on. So that's debt, is a killer. It's a freedom killer. It's a happiness killer. It just drains you emotionally, mentally, and even physically. You just feel down. When you don't have energy, it's like it shows in your body. You're slouching. You just kind of you're depressed. You can't even really smile because it just bogs you down. It's constantly a burden on your mind. So start with the cash flow statement. Look at your expenses that you can eliminate. And even the ones that you do need, and by the way, this everything that I'm telling you now is exactly what I did. I probably even more extreme. I mean, I went full mode minimalist lifestyle and just kind of eliminated all of the expenses that I didn't need. I was really living on like the bare essentials. So even the things that you do need, obviously you need food for survival, but do you need, like the most expensive meat on the shelf? You can still eat meat, but it doesn't have to be the most expensive one. So that just an example of how to reduce even those essential expenses. So eliminating those non-essentials and just kind of trying to reduce even the essentials. And you'll find that you'll be surprised as to how much money you're going to have at the end of the month. And obviously, I dedicated my savings to my debt. I actually made a mistake of also investing while I was in debt because I thought, well, this asset is just gonna shoot to the moon, and I'm gonna cash out once it's 10x, and I'm gonna pay off my debt, and I'll have savings from those profits. And it didn't work out like that. So I would not, if I was in debt, I would not invest until I paid off my debt, because debt is guaranteed. As long as it's outstanding, as long as you haven't paid it, it's guaranteed to be there. But investments, returns on investments is not guaranteed. Investment can go up or down, it can completely disappear. And then what? The money that you used on an investment could have gone towards debt. So now you no longer have that investment, but you still have the debt minus that money. So, how long did it take me? I think I still live the minimalist lifestyle, to be completely frank. I think it was a process of 6 years that it took me to pay off the debt and to save up 50,000, which I don't think is bad. I mean, just think about it. You're going from minus 40, starting from the street, to plus 50, no debt. That's in 6 years. I made, 6 years when you're in it, meaning that sacrifice, it feels long. It absolutely feels long, and it's good. And especially, I left my biggest debts for last, which was my personal loan. And I paid off the credit card. I paid off my vehicle finance. Paid off the overdraft. Paid off the furniture that I owed. Paid off this and that. Now the loan is like the personal loan is the last one. It just felt like a mountain. Like I was never gonna chip away at it, and it was just never going to disappear. And then eventually it did, because I got, lived the minimalist lifestyle, and along those years I managed to find higher paying work, which helped me tremendously. That helped pay. And then also not having all those other debt payments for the credit card, for the vehicle finance, not having to pay that. uh, and I used that money to contribute towards the personal loan. So it was just kind of compounding. And then I remember it was in November 22, 2022, that I made a lump sum payment on my personal loan. And I was just like, oh, feels so good. Feels so good, I must say. Felt really good, and no more debt ever again. So, because I did it, I'm an example that anybody can do it, and you absolutely can do it. You just have to make the commitment to change, and change is very difficult. And I also, I promulgate. I'm a proponent of this minimalist lifestyle because it works, but I understand that people can't make that change. Not everybody can that make that drastic change. So they need to kind of do baby steps. And that's why I introduced the $100 saving challenge, which I'll talk about in live stream. But I think, if you're serious about conditioning yourself to become a saver, because that's what it's about. That's why I say, this process will teach you to condition yourself to become a saver. And then once you've paid off all of this debt, this lowering your lifestyle, that's become your new norm. You become used to it and you're fine. It's not after a certain point, you're no longer making sacrifices because this is now your new normal, I suppose, and you're fine with it. You've conditioned yourself to live on that level, and you can now, because you don't have debt and you've got savings, you can go up to a new level, but you just don't want to because you've worked so hard to pay off that debt and to have those savings that you don't want to let go. You don't want to just spend those savings. You'd much rather invest it so that it grows your savings even more. That's the mentality that you develop throughout this entire process. And I can tell you that mentality is I would say 99% of this entire process. Obviously habit, I think mentality you develop through a habit. So it kind of starts off as I make a change, I become disciplined. I'm now developing this habit through this discipline, and therefore I'm forming a new mentality. I'm conditioning myself to think differently. I think that's kind of like the process that really happens. I never thought about it. Just I literally thought about it now, and kind of came up with that process. But that's really what it is. And having the right mentality, having the right mindset towards money is just so crucial. It's everything. You're either, like I say, you're either a saver or you're a spender. Spenders have been conditioned to spend, savers have been conditioned to save. And the big difference, like I always say, with spenders and savers is that when a spender comes into money, the first thing they're going to think is, oh, great, now I've got this money to spend. I should treat myself. Whereas a saver, because they've gone through this whole process of getting rid of debt and building savings, the first thing they think is, oh, great, I've got more money now to save or invest, whatever it is. That's just how they think. And that difference between, I want to spend it now, I want instant gratification, as opposed to I'm going to delay gratification so that my money can earn me more money. Then only will I take a portion of those profits to spend. That just makes a huge, huge difference in people's personal finances. It really does. And that's what happened to me. Now when I see something that I want, I think about it for a while. Do I really need it? Can I buy it at least 3 or 4 times with cash? Once I buy it, will I have enough money after I buy it? Will my savings still be significant and so forth? And it's this whole process that I go through, that I think about before I eventually decide. And I think that's important. That's what happens with savers. They have this process, whereas spenders are like, oh, great, let's do it right now. I want it. And I can understand it because that's exactly who I was. I'm laughing because that was me. So, if you've made financial mistakes, trust me, I've probably made even more than you, and I've got 2 finance degrees. So that should tell you something about university. Let me just say that. Obviously, the thing, because most of us don't receive this education in school. Schools aren't teaching it. I think some are at the moment. They're kind of bringing it in as part of the curriculum. But most people never get to learn this, and they never get to learn it from home because their parents didn't teach it to them. So here I am trying to be that parent. I suppose I shouldn't say it like that. I'm just trying to be that person, who's sharing his experiences to help others so that you could see that you're not the only one, and that so that you have guidance to navigate this path, which seems like it's daunting, it's dark, it's long, it's lonely, and it's gonna last forever. And it's not. There really is light at the end of the tunnel. And if you just start taking that one step, you pay off that one debt, and you feel good. It boosts your morale. You see, oh, jeez, I did it. I actually paid off a debt. Oh my God. It's that type of thing. It's like, because most people, with their credit cards, they've just had their credit card for years and years, and they've been kind of paying it off. Now all of a sudden that they've had a complete mind shift, they've paid off the card and they're not going to use it again. They've closed that account. It's like, this feels strange. I don't have this credit card anymore. And then you realize you actually don't need it. That's the thing. It's crazy. But you needed it when you wanted to live a certain lifestyle which you couldn't afford. That's when you need it. But now, because you've lowered your lifestyle, you are starting to understand why you no longer need this credit card, because it's not necessary. You don't need the fancy gadgets. You're fine as you are. You're fine with wearing, the same pairs of jeans for 2-3 years. Oh my God, what are people gonna say? Look, you're wearing the same jeans for 2-3 years. Who cares? Who cares about them? They might have new jeans every other month, but that's because they're putting it on credit cards and they're up to their eyeballs in debt. Forget them. Forget what they're doing. That's none of your business. You need to focus on yourself and getting your finances in order. Don't worry about other people's finances, what they're doing. Just focus on yourself, and just know that if you get on the path to being debt free, that's an amazing journey. It's not an easy journey, but you're moving towards a special place, even though it feels long and grueling and lonely. Because everybody else around you is buying, the latest sneakers. They're expensive. They got the latest phone, and you've still got that model from 4 years ago. So what? It's working. What's the difference between your current phone, the phone that's 4 or 5 years old, and the current one? If you really think about it, it's the difference. They're all the same. As long as you can call, email, SMS, and surf the web, what more do you need? Forget about these trends and what your other friends have, and if they're teasing you. You're on your own journey. You only have to impress yourself. And by getting on that journey to debt, moving towards being debt free, and then especially once you become debt free, I promise you, you're going to be so impressed with yourself, so proud of yourself for doing it. It'll be worth every single sacrifice that you've ever made. It'll absolutely be worth it. And you'll thank yourself. And after that journey, you can maybe take a bit of a break and go to some restaurant and have a nice meal, because you deserve it. You really do. It's something that most people, getting on the journey to being debt free and having savings, something that's they're not going to do, because they want their lifestyle which they can't afford, and they want to impress others and so forth. Yeah. Actually, on finishfirstfinancially.com, I've written several blogs, obviously all about personal finance, different topics. And one of the the first one that I did is how to stop living paycheck to paycheck and save a lot of money. That was so I wrote that March 2023, the first one. That's the first blog. I chose that because, one of the scariest statistics in America is that 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. think it may be 50, but the number keeps increasing every single year, honestly, because most people's financial situations are not improving. So 50 to 60 people in America are living paycheck to paycheck. So they're literally one paycheck away from being homeless. That's what it is. So I wanted to share this information about how to stop living paycheck to paycheck, because it's so crucial. And there's what's even more frightening is that there are people who are making six figures and they living paycheck to paycheck. So that just shows you that it's all about the lifestyle. Whether you're making $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month, you can still be in that same financial rut as somebody who's making uh, twice the money. That's why it's important to condition yourself to be a saver, because as I said, a spender, when they get more money, let's say they get a salary increase, the first thing that they think about is spending. So if you went from $5,000 a month to $10,000 a month and you're still conditioned to be a spender, you're just going to find ways to spend that $5,000. I used to think that if I received the salary increase, if I got a raise, if I found a better paying job, that I would solve all my financial problems. And that just wasn't the case. I received several raises, went to better paying jobs, and still I had financial problems because I had not conditioned myself to be a saver. So once I became a saver, that's what I say, with the additional money, savers immediately think I've got more money to save, I've got more money to invest. So don't think that a higher paying salary is going to be the solution to all of your problems. That's not it. It's becoming a saver. That's the long lasting solution. Once you become a saver, remember your whole mentality towards money shifts. You start to think differently about it. So then once you go from $5,000 to $10,000 a month, life gets even better, because now you've got more money to dedicate to savings and investments. So let's just read this blog that I wrote, How to Stop Living Paycheck to Paycheck and Save a Lot of Money. Knowing how to stop living paycheck to paycheck provides you with extra cash to build an emergency account and increase your savings. It enables you to allocate more money to debt repayment so you can reach financial freedom sooner. Isn't that the truth? So what does living paycheck to paycheck mean? You have barely enough money to cover your monthly expenses and no money is left over to be added to savings. The situation for so many people. That's a tough position to be in, which can cause frustration, stress, and other mental conditions. Happened to me. The good news is that it's within your control to form new money habits that will put you on a path to achieve your financial goals. Why you're struggling financially? The two biggest reasons people struggle financially is because of status and comfort. And I'm going to do a live stream about status and comfort, probably like the entire live stream just on that. I mean, I could talk about it for several hours. I touched on it somewhat, but this is really at the core of most people's financial woes. So let's carry on. It's likely that your motivation for shopping is those two factors. Let me read that again. It's likely that your motivation for shopping is those two factors. So the reason that you shop is either because of status or comfort. That's what I meant to say. You should never finance a vehicle, but many people do because others being impressed by their car makes them feel a certain level of status. Your car's heated seats and sound system provide them with comfort. But comfort is also associated with more affordable purchases, such as a subscription to a video streaming service or the fifth pair of shoes you have to own, otherwise you're going to die. So that's the thing, about status and comfort, is that it can be small or it can be big. Yeah, as I mentioned, it can be just a subscription. You think, that's nothing. It's just a subscription. It doesn't mean much. It's nothing. Or it can be something as big as a car. But a little thing over here and a little thing over there and another little thing down there adds up and then becomes a big expense. And it also obviously forms the habit of spending. That's what we're talking about. Carry on. Status and comfort are not the only causes of your financial struggles, but they're the reason you're still struggling. Most people don't want to lower their standard of living because it means lowering their status and being less comfortable. Oh, man, that is so true. I know I wrote that. So I'm kind of blowing smoke up my own behind, but seriously, let me just read that again because I think if most people grasp that and made and turned just that part of their life, it would, the change would be astronomical. Most people don't want to lower their standard of living because it means lowering their status and being less comfortable. To stop living paycheck to paycheck, stop worrying about your status and become uncomfortable. That's what you have to do. That's what happens when you make the drastic change. Do you know what percent of Americans live paycheck to paycheck? Okay, so then at the time I Googled it and I saw, okay, so it's just over 60%. In the so-called richest country in the world, more than half of the population has no money after paying their monthly expenses. Yikes. Just think about that. You know, we always hear America is the most powerful nation in the world. You know, people are making so much money, but look at their financial situation. Even the six-figure people, many of them are living paycheck to paycheck. Living your life for other people. It's likely that you're worried about what your family, friends, or partner will think if you downgrade to a more affordable vehicle, move to a cheaper neighborhood, and no longer wear designer labels. Imagine what they'll think of you when you're homeless. And just think about that. That's one thing that I realized. One thing that happened to me when I became homeless is that I completely stopped caring about what other people thought of me. It was the most magical thing that happened to me. Out of everything, you know, out of all the lessons that I learned and the things that happened to me, one of the most divine things that happened was that I just stopped caring what people thought of me. And when you stop caring what people think of you, you start living life for yourself. You should only be living life for yourself, nobody else. Well, obviously, if you have children or wife, you need to support them. I understand that's not, and I'm not saying discard them. But what I'm saying is you need to impress yourself. You know, that's stop worrying about impressing others. And otherwise, you could end up in a really bad situation and then imagine what people are going to think of you. If you don't have any savings, you're one paycheck away from being on the street. That actually happened to me. Yep. That picture is actually not of me. But I was living in my car. So I was fortunate. I was living in a luxury BMW parked on the side of the road, which I hadn't paid for 3 months. And the car broke down, so I couldn't even drive it. Oh, jeez, such a disaster. What happened? But I guess what they say is true. When it rains, it pours. I had invested all of my money into a nightclub I opened. After selling a portion of my shares to my partners, I became the minority shareholder and got fired from the business I started. With no savings, I was evicted from my apartment and had nowhere to go. I parked on the side of the street and lived in my car. The 2 financial management degrees I obtained at university didn't help me to avoid homelessness. So there's education that you receive at school, and then there's education that life teaches you. And I can tell you, having both, life is your best mentor. You know, hopefully get a mentor, because it's always better to learn from somebody else's mistakes before you make them. You know, learning from your own mistakes is good, but it's so much better to learn from other people's mistakes so that you don't make them at all. But most of the education that I got was from experiences. I never really had any mentors. The only mentors that I had were like from YouTube videos once I decided to make this whole change in my financial situation. But I was really just, it was trial and error until I eventually got it right. That was how I learned. But life experience, so much better than what university is going to teach you. I learned that being broke makes you not care about what others think of you. Okay. The reason you still care about what others think of your possessions is because the extent of your pain isn't too severe. So that basically means you're not uncomfortable enough, right? Let's just see, what did I say? Okay, yeah. With me living on the street and not having food, you can imagine that my pain was extremely severe and reached its threshold. So if you've got debt and you're kind of paying it off, and let's say on some of the things you default a month or two or three, but then you kind of make it up, you feel some kind of discomfort, but not enough discomfort to make that change. That's really one of the problems with most people, is that they never experience that drastic. They go down. Here's the thing about failing financially. Hardly anybody fails financially overnight. It's a process that happens throughout weeks, months, and even years. And you gradually go down and down and down. And what happens, I think it's, the analogy that I could use is like when you gain weight, you gain 2 or 3 kilograms. You're like, oh, okay, I put on a bit of kilos. And then you become used to that weight. And then you put another 5 kilos. And you're like, oh man, I put on weight. But then now you become accustomed to those extra 7, 8 kilos. Then you put on another 2 or 3. So now you're over 10 kilos after several months. Like, how the heck did I get here? And then you even become used to that, So that's why it's like a gradual process of gaining weight, same as failing financially. It's just like a gradual process that happens throughout a long period, until eventually you hit rock bottom and you like, okay, now I actually have to make a change. I have no other option. And that was, unfortunately, it took homelessness for me to make that drastic change. So it doesn't have to be that way for you. Just look at your finances, and if you're in debt and you have no savings, that should be enough motivation for you to make a drastic change immediately. Don't wait until things get worse. Okay, so speaking of me living on the street and not having food, that's when I made a change. I decided to learn about getting out of debt and saving money. If you follow the advice I will dispense in this blog, I have no doubt that your financial situation will improve. The extent of the change you make will determine how much money you save. So if you're only going to reduce one expense, well, you can only save that much money. If you reduce or eliminate 2 expenses from your cash flow statement, well, then now you've got more money to dedicate towards paying debt. So you're going to determine how quickly you're going to pay off the debt and how much money you're going to save. It's completely up to you. I recommend you take drastic steps which will require you to stop worrying about what others think and say about you and become uncomfortable. A money savings challenge. I learned that money management is about how much money you keep and not how much money you make. Oh man, I think that was a huge lesson for me, because and it comes back to my example of making 5,000 and going to 10,000. Doesn't matter if you've gone to 10,000, you're still a spender, you're going to have zero. But somebody who's conditioned themselves to save on 5,000, and then all of a sudden they go down to 3,000 for whatever reason, they still surprisingly save money, because they've just conditioned themselves, that have learned how to live on the bare essentials. So it's about how much money you keep at the end of the month, not how much money you make. That there's a big difference between those two. My belief used to be that a higher income would heal all my financial wounds. I was wrong. I actually received a few raises, yet I made no financial improvements. The reason is that I had conditioned myself to be a spender, and savings weren't high on my priorities. That's another thing that most people don't understand, is that you need to make it a priority to save. It needs to become a priority, not just something, oh yeah, I'll get around to it, or I'll do it here and there and so forth. It needs to be a priority. I'm willing to bet you're the same. If I'm wrong, why do you not have savings? The key to saving extra money is to recondition yourself to become a saver. This gives you the highest probability of staying on the savings path and not reverting to spending habits. Habits are formed after remaining disciplined for weeks and months. Now, what's funny to me is that a lot of the stuff that I've read now is what I mentioned earlier in the live stream. And I honestly haven't read this blog in months, but I guess it's just one of those things, that information that's stuck in my head. So it's in my head, it's on paper, now it's on the live stream. This gives you the highest probability of I read that. Habits are formed after remaining disciplined for weeks and months. Eventually, you should reach a point where spending money is painful. That's another thing that I mentioned. It's like you just feel pain. You think, you go through this whole process. Do I really need this? What are cheaper alternatives? Do I need it at all? And, can I really afford it? All of these things go through your mind once you've conditioned yourself to be a saver. Now, you probably get satisfaction from buying items because you're wrapped up in status and comfort. It's time your ego took a blow. That's the part that most people don't want. They don't want a blow to the ego because it means living a lower standard of living. That's what it is. It means getting rid of that expensive car. It means no longer buying those gadgets and so forth, and living beyond your means and having a credit card. Your ego needs to take a blow. Here's the money savings challenge. It's actually supposed to be money saving challenge that will take you from struggling to savings. Live way below your means. Be a minimalist for a prolonged period. It will change your life for the better, enable you to save a lot of money. That's what happened to me. I went from the street to paying off $40,000 in debts and saving up $50,000. You have to go all in. There's no bargaining with me when it comes to compiling a minimalist budget. Your only option is to reduce all expenses. It sounds impossible, but it's not. So step 1, compile a list of your expenses. To get the most accurate figures for your expenses, you need to keep all receipts for a month. Enter them into a money saving app or an Excel spreadsheet. Ensure that every expense is recorded. Parking and moving tickets, clothing, and especially takeouts. These are all little, we think, I parked here and there, and it's not serious. I don't need to track that. And then once you start tracking, you see it's like 10, 15 places where you parked, and it adds up. You ate a few times, like more than 10 times, not just 2 or 3 times. So only once you start tracking those expenses do you realize how big they are. And that's why it's important to track every single expense. Keep each expense on its own line item. So don't mix them up on your cash flow statement. You want to see rent, electricity, all of these individual expenses on their own line so that you can see them clearly. They must stand out. I recommend inputting the receipts immediately after purchase so you don't lose them. You may be overwhelmed with the number of receipts to record at the end of the month, so it's best to do it right away. Step 2, scrutinize your expenses. This is where the change takes effect. All of us can reduce our expenses. You need to look at each item on the list and come up with a solution to reduce it. Notice I said solution and not see if you can. So this is one of those things where you diddly-daddly, that's why I said you need to make a commitment. You need to go all in. It's not like when you decide that I'm going to make this change, I'm going to be disciplined, then you go all in. Then you start asking your mind questions such as, what is the solution? Not, let's see if I can find the solution. And if I don't, we'll get around to it another day. That's not going to work. That's not going to help you. You need to be fully committed. And I was fully committed, started being fully committed like 7 years ago, and I still am, so you need to take it seriously. Like I said, you need to make saving a priority. Every expense can be reduced. Let's start with the big expense most people have, housing and transportation. If you work remotely, moving to a cheaper place is easy. You can be anywhere in the world. Your goal with a minimalist budget is not to live in a cool neighborhood, but to save money. This also pertains to office workers. If you cannot move too far away, reduce your living expenses by moving to a smaller place within the neighborhood. Rent out a room or move in with someone. I did. I moved in with an elderly couple and I was just paying for the room as opposed to my own place. I reduced my rental expense by half, and I saved a lot of money. I realized that an adjustment to your living situation affects your privacy, but it's time to be uncomfortable. Remember, we've spoken about that. Your ego needs to take a blow and you need to become uncomfortable. Keep in mind that not all changes are permanent. Eventually, once you've built up a healthy savings account, you can be more flexible with expenses. But right now, become less comfortable by moving to a more affordable place or share your living space. Cars, one of the biggest expenses and fascination that people have. That piece of machinery that depreciates and is a bottomless money pit. Yeah, I know all about that. Believe me. Spent so much money fixing my BMW, and then at the end, it broke down again. And another thing happened to it afterwards, which you can check in my book, From Homeless to Debtless with Savings. Your vehicle is sucking all the money from your wallet, and because of status and comfort, you hang on to it. If you live in a metropolitan city offering public transport, there's no reason for you to own a car. The only time it makes sense financially is if you use it to generate an income, such as being a taxi driver or a sales rep. The average car payment in America is almost $700. That's for a new car. That's for a new vehicle. And I said, that's bananas. You want to hear something crazier? My car payment was higher than my rent. The payment itself wasn't higher, but all of the expenses combined. So with insurance, with petrol, I mean, that was definitely higher than my rent. It was just crazy. I was spending, I think, about 30% of my income on my car alone. Just nuts. Yes, I was a financial moron, which is one of the reasons I ended up on the street. Even if your car payment is $300, that's not the only expense it carries. Other costs are registration, maintenance, tire replacement, and gas, and several others. Your car expenses are one of the biggest reasons you're living paycheck to paycheck. That's absolutely true. Get rid of your car ASAP. At the very least, downgrade to a more affordable one. Like I said, $2,000 or $3,000, very reliable Hondas and Toyotas. Sure, they'll be old, but if you take care of them, they'll take care of you. I haven't owned a car for 6 years and I'm coping just fine. That's true. But I do have a car that I'm driving around now. So that obviously it's nice, it's much better than walking around. But that I'm debt free. I've got savings, so I'm in a different situation than what I was 7 years ago when I was up to my eyeballs in debt. I'm coping just fine. I saved a tremendous amount of money because I don't own a vehicle. Food. Stop eating out and getting takeaways. Just stop it. Not only are you likely consuming unhealthy food, but you're spending a fortune on it. If you cut restaurants and takeaways out of your monthly budget, don't be surprised to have an extra few $100s at the end of the month. Yeah, possibly maybe even $1,000. Most American households don't even have $1,000 saved. So just keep that in mind. And you'll be surprised once you reduce several expenses, your monthly savings can go over $1,000 easy. Even if you don't eat out, you can reduce your grocery bill actually. Look at the food that you're buying and the supply. Instead of having steak often, substitute it with macaroni and cheese. Buy your food from farmers markets. It's likely to be cheaper and healthier than supermarkets. Subscriptions. Say goodbye to your video streaming subscriptions. The golf club membership, cancel it now. You can't afford it. It's as simple as that. Every dollar counts, and you need to exclude any expense that isn't necessary for survival. That's what the minimalist lifestyle is. If you want drastic improvement, you need to make drastic change. That's what the minimalist lifestyle is. I'm prepping you for a hardcore financial makeover, and you're either on board or not. But your decision will determine if you keep sinking financially or take massive leaps to a savings account. Jeez, this is actually well written, even if I say so myself. I'm surprised at some of this writing. I haven't owned a TV for more than 10 years. Still don't. It's a complete waste of time. If I can do it, so can you. Read a book instead. So much more valuable. It will provide you with knowledge and make you a more interesting person. Some of the other items to reduce or eliminate. Keep scrolling through your list and find ways to decrease each expense. Reduce the number of times you go out with your friends to places where you spend money. Instead, opt for a barbecue at each other's houses. But even, yeah, cheap barbecue. Clothing is another big expense, especially for women. There is nothing wrong with wearing the same clothes numerous times. Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg did it all the time. And that's the thing, because they're so rich, they don't care what you think of them. They're just going to wear the same clothes. They're not trying to impress you. So don't try to impress others. Just worry about impressing yourself. And you will do so when you get out of debt and build savings. Stop buying gadgets and other stupid stuff from Amazon or other retailers. I don't have anything against Amazon or any other retailer. I'm just saying this because something crazy that I heard, like some people get a package from Amazon every single day. The only thing that I've ever bought from Amazon were digital books. That's it. I've never received a package from Amazon in my entire life. I don't understand you people getting packages every single day, even if it's just a few times a month. It's crazy. I don't have anything against those companies, but I do have a problem with you wasting money. Final thoughts on how to stop living paycheck to paycheck. If you think I'm crazy for suggesting you follow all my guidelines, I think it's crazy that people can barely wait for their paycheck to feel some relief. I can't imagine living from 1 month to the next. No, it's crazy. The mental torment such people feel must be excruciating. Not having money to cover an unexpected expense can feel degrading. And it's just stressful. I mean, it's crazy that people live like that. And you don't need to. Just don't need to. You don't need that hassle and that burden. Just start getting out of debt and save money. Do yourself and your family a favor by making a savings goal to live like a minimalist. You've been comfortable and a spender for far too long. Improving your financial situation will require a drastic change. I've shown you how to stop living paycheck to paycheck. Everything I mentioned is what I followed. Probably even more that I followed. That's really extreme. That's how I know it works. If you want to start by saving $100, check out my article on how to stop being broke. It provides practical advice that will recondition you to become a saver. Just know that the way you've been doing things has brought you to the results you have. Has brought you the results. So just know that the way you've been doing things has brought you the results you have. If you want different results, you'll have to manage money differently. Jeez, I can't believe I've been going at this for an hour now. That's that's quite a while that I've been talking. But I mean, there's still so much to talk about, and we will, because I plan on doing these live streams Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So do join me. Then hopefully eventually we'll get to having enough people join these live streams and then start having live calls, probably via Zoom or something, so that you can also see the people and we can discuss their financial situation. Obviously, if you want to read more, all these blogs that I've written about different finance topics, go to finishfirstfinancially.com, finishfirstfinancially.com. My book is also available on there. You can also book consultations with me if you want a private session. So, that's something that happens just between me and you. All of the information is on the blog. And then I will catch you tomorrow, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will talk about another finance topic and have some fun. And I'll read another article and discuss other things that will help you to improve your finances.